All right, everybody, welcome to Living Waters Online Fly Tying. So we are going to be tying the mimic hopper tonight. So we got a handful of folks on here. Going to give just everybody a couple minutes to jump on and we'll get rolling. So tonight we are going to be doing the mimic hopper, which will be a little change of pace from what I have been tying lately. I've been doing a lot of hair bugs, but we'll be tying this guy tonight. It's just a nice little segmented hopper. Very, very fun pattern to tie once you get a little bit of it under your belt. So if anybody has any questions, you can drop those in the chat. So I will put something in there so everybody knows where that's at. And we will get rolling. Awesome. Hopefully y'all been out catching fish. I know it's been warm, but the mornings are okay. So had some nice cool mornings, and honestly, some of the rivers, the hotter it gets, the better it fishes. The San Marcos is definitely one of those. But we will go ahead and get rolling. So hopefully everybody can see this okay, and hopefully audio is good for everybody. So thank you all for joining tonight, and appreciate y'all logging on. Tonight we're tying this little guy. It's one of my absolute go-to patterns for hopper fishing in general. Whether it be in the mountains, whether it be down here in Texas, I use this fly religiously. I love it. And the goal behind it truly was having a fly that really did have a very hyper natural appearance. You know, those legs kicked out to the side, little CDC to kind of break up the silhouette a little bit. And then I love tying with naturals. It's just something I really, really enjoy. So this fly capitalizes on that, where we've got the elk hair, we've got deer hair for the body and the back. The only thing that's not natural on this is literally the rubber legs, and I wanted rubber instead of doing some sort of a pheasant tail type leg, just for durability standpoint. So it looks great. The fish love it. I have some incredible stories about using this fly. In fact, the first time that I tied a handful of them, I don't really remember what the driving, where the creation of this happened. I know it was at my house, and I was having a late night tying session, and I think I accidentally messed up on one fly and was like, you know, that kind of looks a little hopperish, and tried to do it with that reverse bullet head, and it looked really good. Tied a couple of beta editions and didn't like them, and threw the CDC collar on it and fell in love with it. I gave a few to Jim Kettleman, said go try these out, and the pictures he came back were all these great bass and really good largemouth. He's like, this works great. He's like, I love it. So I went and tried it on Brushy Creek. The fish ate it like crazy, and then I took it up to Colorado that summer, and the trout went nuts for it. So I tied this one up to a size 8. You can go bigger if you want to. Tonight we will be working on a size 10, but the size 8 is the biggest that Umpqua produces it as, and they currently produce it in an 8, a 10, and a 12, but I think in 2026 they'll release the 14, I believe, or at least there's talk of that. So we'll actually have it in one size smaller. It is a little tricky to tie in the smaller sizes. I'm going to be really honest. It takes some nimble fingers and a lot of patience, but this fly produces when sometimes nothing else will. Perfect examples, last summer I was fishing with a good friend of mine, Kevin Terry, and we were up in a creek that shall remain nameless in southern Colorado, and we were up there catching, foot-long to 13-inch, cutthroats pretty well. We had a couple that were in the 10, 11-inch class, but most everything was right around a foot, maybe even had a couple that were touching close to the 14-inch range. Really good fish. So, I mean, just having a great day. Found one that was just blaze orange, just this beautiful, beautiful fish, and we were just sitting there in awe of this fish, and it was just eating and darting back and forth in the current. He's like, take it. And I was like, all right. So I get in position with my 3-weight, a little windy, made the shot. Fish comes over, tried to grab a chubby Chernobyl, and it missed, and it kind of spooked itself, and it wouldn't eat again. So then I threw a mimic sedge on it, wouldn't eat that. Then I threw a big fat ant on it, wouldn't eat that. Then I threw like some little minuscule, I think I threw a mimic May and a blue wing olive. And it looked at it, but it wouldn't eat it. So I was like, this thing, I mean, we were giving up on it essentially. And Kevin's like, let's go get another fish. I said, I got one more thing up my sleeve. And I grabbed the mimic hopper, and I kind of went the opposite direction of going down, and threw like a size 10 hopper right at that fish. It destroyed it. First cast, literally threw it right in front of the fish. Fish moved over about 1.5 feet to eat the fly, and set the hook, and we were just laughing the whole time. And this fly has proved its worth time and time again, whether it be in warm water environments, cold water environments. It's a really good one to add to your box. So we're going to go ahead and get started with the tying side of things. Again, if anybody has any questions, do not hesitate to drop stuff in the chat. I will periodically check it. But tonight we are going to tie Johnson's mimic hopper. So We're going to start off, the whole platform of the entire fly is built on this, and let's see if I can get that in focus for everybody. There we go. TMC 5212. And basically, this fly, I love this. It even has hopper and terrestrial labeled on the hook there. So if you don't know what hook you need, that's the one. So it's a 2X fine hook, so it's a light wire hook, but it does do a really good job on some of your larger terrestrials where you don't want the actual weight of the hook to sink the fly. So we're going to do this in a size 10 tonight. So we'll clamp that guy in there. So that's a little 5212 and a size 10. I'm going to put these guys over here. I got 100 packs, so I don't want to throw them everywhere. Sorry for this may not be quite as organized as usual. I got in here to set up camera equipment, and I think I finished with like 6 minutes to spare after I leveled audio. It was a very, very busy day today. Thread-wise, we are going to be doing, I'm taking a Veevus in kind of a tan color, and a 10/0 is sufficient for this. So general rule of thumb here, you can start with a little jam knot right in the middle if you want to. That works fine. We're going to kind of try to get this right, and I may mess up on this, I'll be really honest. I like kind of telling people that in advance, because some of this stuff, it gets a little bit interesting when you start trying to tie this rear bullet head in. It gets a little funky. So one of the things to watch for is when you're manipulating that hair and trying to be really, really careful about you know, how you put it on there and making sure it doesn't slide off the hook bend. That is something to really note. We got to be very careful on the first step when we add this hair here. And all we're going to do is add deer hair to the rear of the fly. Grabbing a hairbrush here real quick. Had to get this one's missing a tooth, but it'll work. All we need is just a little deer hair comb to make sure we get the underfur out. If you have one that's made of bone, that works even better. The plastic ones do hold a little bit of static. But we're going to be using this pale yellow in this deer hair. So this is just a pale yellow. Nature's Spirit is the one that does this. I'll show you the package if I've got it. It's spinning deer hair in a pale yellow. If you ask for it at the shop, there's a very high likelihood that I'm out of this, but we can get it. So don't worry about that. But nonetheless, this is the color code. That's the item code. That's everything you would need if you were looking for it. And if we're out of it downstairs, then I can by all means get you some. All right, we are going to cut a clump of this stuff. Make sure you cut it as close to the hide as you can. It just pains me to watch people cut deer hair and it's like halfway up the bunch. So you can see right here, I mean, this is a perfect illustration. You got loose hairs and all this stuff. Just comb that out. See all that? That's the stuff we don't want right there. That's just no good. We don't want any of that present at all. So give a couple of brushes. That's one brush, that's two brush. And I'm going to go through there a number of times and I'll kind of tease it in both directions. Get that out of there, get that underfur gone. Pull out any of the shorts. We don't want any of that. And then I'm going to come in and hold all the butt sections of the hair and pull out any shorts the other direction. Now, I always cut off a little bit more hair than I think I need, just because I can always thin it down after I stack it. So put it in the stacker. So there's a stacker. Put this in there, points or tips down. That's all we're after there. We're going to stack that on a table. You don't have to do so rhythmically. Cadences are nice. I don't really think it improves the effectiveness of the fly, but there it is. That's a very nicely stacked bunch. That's what we're after. Keeping in mind that the tips, normally like on an elk hair caddis and things like that, the tips are what's going to show. Here we're actually going to tie the tips in. And so that's kind of the caveat here. So we're going to pull the tips and actually tie those in. So here you can see I've probably got just a little bit too much hair. For a size 10, it's close. But I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to stack this one more time. If you'll notice, I've got a couple of shorts in here where you bend the hair. Let me see if I can show you that. Where I bend the hair and they start to poke up, get those out of there. We don't want that at all. I want a nice long bunch of hair because you're going to need to tie this in lengthwise down the hook. So somewhat important, I will oftentimes stack this twice. All right, once again stacked, a little bit better proportion. That's what we're after. So now we're simply going to take these tips against here, make the loop over. Keep in mind that these tips are going to be very, very slippery. So if you were to wrap the other direction, going towards the hook eye, the odds of these slipping out is pretty high. Notice that I'm trying not to let go with that other hand at this point. Once I get here and I've got it secured in, I can move that hand back and you'll notice it's going to want to spin around the hook ever so slightly. See that? And then it pulls right out. That's what you don't want. And yes, I knew that was going to happen, so we're okay here. The thing is if you're going to learn to tie this fly, the mistake points are what you have to watch out for. And when you let go with that left hand, it pulls right out every time. And I think a lot of folks, you know, when you see a fly tied, especially on camera, if nobody ever intentionally messes up or even accidentally messes up in some cases, that stuff comes right out and you're sitting there struggling with it because you never see the mistake points. And so that's number one mistake in that fly. I'm just throwing some more hair in that stacker, and then we're going to show you how to do it properly. So I'm going to back that off because I don't want any of that loose thread there. Take this, pull your hair out. Again, I'm going to pull the shorts out, any of the underfur out, and then we'll show you how to do this right. Don't let go with that left hand, or if in this case, your material hand. I know not everybody's right-handed here. So here I'm just going to keep the longest ones. So I've got the longest hairs. Take the tips, pull it in, try to grasp those. It's going to be a little hard to get all these. Try to grasp those. I'm going to slide them back. Not going to let go with that left hand until I get a real good bite on this material. And you can see right there the material bit. You can see how I've actually got a little bulge in there. We can take that and tie that down. That'll all secure with thread. That's good. If you don't have a little bunch right there, it probably isn't going to work. This will pull out. Notice now I can let go. It flares correctly. Everything is good. And now we can take this and go here. We're going to go as far back on this hook as we can. I'm going to wrap those rearwards, and I'm just going to tie down any little bumps you get there. Just kind of cross back over those, make sure you're good. Once you've done so, come up here. And if you got any other stragglers there, you can trim the tips off at this point, but they are mostly going to be covered at the tie-in point. We're about to put CDC and hackle and stuff all over that, so I'm not really worried about that at this point. Now, we have all this hair hanging out the back here. That's all well and good. The real trick now is how do we get it to do what we need it to do? And if you'll look, it is pretty even. It's not perfect, but it's pretty even around the hook. It kind of makes a skirt all the way around it. The idea here, a lot of times what I will do is I'll come in here from the back section here, pull this up, kind of make a bunch, pull it over, and then grasp it in the front. And you'll see how now that pulls over the hook, just like so. That's what we're after. So I'm going to move my thread a little bit further forward. About right, let me make sure I don't get anything in there, about right there. I can always back this body off, but I'm going to make that bunch, pull it forward. Notice I don't have any short hairs in there, which is great. That's what I want, at least I don't think I do. The camera will show me stuff that I forgot. And while holding this with my right hand, in this case I've switched my bobbin and my material hand, I'm going to hold that under tension and make a wrap all the way around. I'm going to cross over that 2 or 3 times. And if you look, I have this nice, neat little bulbous body. That's what we're after right there. Got our nice little bulbous body. One little loose hair there, but I'm not worried about it. He's going to get wrapped down on all the other cross-hatching we're about to do. So make sure that's tied in nice and firm. Flare that out pretty good. Take your scissors, come in here. I normally close them like this and trim as close to that as I can get. Do not get those scissor points and prick anything behind your thread wraps. It will ruin your bullet head. So do not do that. All this is a reverse bullet head on the rear of the fly. So a couple of trims, trying to do this real methodical where everybody can see it. Watch those hairs. That's it right there. That's what we're after. That's the finished kind of staging for that rear body. I'm going to come in here and make a couple of thread wraps to cross through this guy. Just a couple. It just makes me feel better. Is it necessary? Probably not. Does it make me feel better? Absolutely. And, you know, at the end of the day, my feelings matter. So here we go. We're going to spin the thread, and I know you can't see that there. All I'm doing is spinning the bobbin to where this thread is rotating like that. And it's basically what's called cording the thread, where when you have that, and I don't know if you can see it kind of in the little sub there, but if you see that, I can actually cord the thread, and it makes it to where instead of being flat, it cords up in this real nice round bit, and that's what we're after. So now I'm going to take this and cross hatch it over, just making a segmented looking body, just like so. Try to do this nice and slow where everybody can see. I'm going to push this all the way to the end. So that's about what I'm after right there, probably somewhere right in here. Be very careful ducking it under the hook there. And the real trick of this is coming back over and meeting the thread on the underneath. So see how it makes that perfect X in the back? And then on the belly, there's only one meet up point. I think that's another problem that people have with this fly is you jump the thread forward, I'll look underneath and notice how my thread meets in the same spot on the bottom side. I only want X's on the top. I don't want them on the bottom. So cross forward, duck the thread into that groove, cross forward, duck the thread into that groove, cross forward, and duck the thread. Once you've done so, make a couple securing wraps, and we're good. The back of your body should look about like so. It's pretty good looking if I do say so myself. And that right there is looking pretty good too. You've got nice, even bottom on this thing. That's exactly what we're after. So, any questions thus far? If you have any questions, do not hesitate to ask. I'm trying to be real thorough on this because I want people to understand it. But that's exactly what we're after there, is that nice bulbous body, little X's on the back, single thread meets in the back there. So I think everybody can see that pretty decently. I'm hoping that's in focus for you guys. All right, step next. I'm going to add, because for one, I like them, whiting hackles. I love me some whiting hackle. This is, I think it's technically a variant, but this is a whiting hen saddle in a unique variant. Just a super cool, like really buggy looking pelt. I love this thing. A natural brown works. Wild type brown in Hebert Minor works as well. Both of those are very, very good for this pattern. I'm going to take a single solitary hen feather. It looks just like this right here. Single solitary hen feather, just like that. That's all we're taking. We're just going to take this little hen feather, and I'm going to prep it by doing this. I'm going to pull all the downy off. So just stripping that off there, get rid of that. We want nice, clean stem. And I'm going to do something that borderlines on the heretical. So if you just bear with me, and if anybody's like drinking coffee or you got a beer or something like that, make sure you swallow because this is painful. I don't like doing this to hackles, but here it just improves the look and how this ties in. Don't judge me, but here it goes. I'm going to take this hackle and see how it kind of has a taper to it. I'm going to come in here with my long scissors, these guys, those Pettyjohn scissors, and I'm going to cut it to where that white edging, I'll show you one side and then the other. See how the white edging on one side is gone? Yeah, I know that's painful for me too. Don't worry about it. You'll get over it in time. Trust me, it's going to be okay. But cut that white edging off, nice and even, and you've got this really cool, nice straight hopper wing. Now, I know that's painful. It's okay. We're going to be all right. If the feather's small enough, sometimes you don't have to do it. But notice on a size 10, I don't want the feather to overlap all too much. So I'm going to kind of prep this by getting rid of some of those fibers. See, I can just poke the fibers up like that and pull them off. That's all I need. Try to get them pretty even, and that's about the distance I want right there. So coming in here, just make a loose loop, capture that, kind of ramp him up that little thread bump there, and try to get this to lay right on top. So what I'm going to do is position the feather where I want it, and then make sure that the thread locks that in at the exact placement that I'm after. And see how flat and how nice that lays across the back? That is exactly what we're wanting. Here is another trick. If I tug on this, this feather will pull up like that. If I leave it soft, I'm doing softer wraps here to position, then I'll come in and do the harder wraps there. We don't want this thing to torque up. We want it to lay nice and flat, just like that, against the back. That's what we're after. Again, any questions, please drop those in the chat. I'm happy to answer them. All right, so we trim the quill off. We're all good here. The very next step is one of my favorite things in all of fly tying, and that is CDC. So CDC feathers are a naturally oiled feather off of a duck's oil, or near a duck's oil gland. So these are the feathers that actually receive the most oil out of that oil gland of anywhere on the duck. They are nicknamed duck butt feathers for good reason, because it does come off the rump section of a duck. As a duck hunter, I have tried to harvest some of my own and discovered these things are really tiny and not worth trying to do. So I buy mine. Take those, you're going to take your CDC feathers here. I'm going to take 2 of them in this pale yellow, flare them, so grab them by the tip, flare all those to where those little barbules are poking out at a 90 degree. And we're going to take both of those feathers and punch them into a pettyjohn clip, provided they are long enough. We shall see. It's going to be close. Can he get it? Let me see here. We're good. All right. Coming in here, we're going to grab the chip clip portion of the pettyjohn clip, grasp the CDC feathers, open it, pull that out, and you'll see I've got all those stems stacked together. I'm going to come in here and trim the stem, or the quill, or the rachis, whatever you want to call it, off, and that leaves me with usable CDC with no quill. Louisiana Blackwater saying, sweet fly, Chris. Well, we're not even done yet. I mean, you could probably fish this, but it only gets better from here. All right, and slightly more complicated. Now, the real trick of this is I have to find out what happened to my thread splitting needle in all this mess. I got deer hair and stuff everywhere. It was here earlier, and if I can't find it, I'm going to wind up having to use my whip finisher, which would be regrettable, but it's not undoable. All right. It is nowhere to be found at present, and that thing is tiny, so I'm not going to go sit here and kill a video for that. What I'm going to do, I've got a really sharp whip finisher, so I should be able to split this thread. Should being the operative word. 10-aught thread, not as easy without a needle, but we'll try. Oh, almost had it. You're going to have to bear with me. This is what happens when you lose your tools. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not working. Let's try the other one. It was on the desk, but with deer hair and feathers, there we go. We're split. Whether we stay split is another question. My thread is still corded, so it's not one to do it. Flatten this out. These are first world problems, folks. Oh, hey. Speaking of first world problems, it hid under my computer. Here's the needle. Sorry for the delay of game, but this makes life way easier. Let's take this little guy. You want to try to split it right where it's flat. And I tore it up a little bit with my whip finisher, so I'm trying to be really careful here. All right. Thread is split. Take this guy. Once you've got your thread split, I know that's a little hard to see on camera because we took a small thread and made it even smaller. Insert your CDC, put it in there, open the chip clip, give a couple of twists just to secure it for initial wraps, and spin the bobbin. So the bobbin's just spinning over here. All we're going to do is keep spinning that more and move those twists up into that CDC brush. So a good spin, move those twists up, and once we've done that, we're ready to wrap. Here, I'm going to wrap and cover all that thread. And then once I see how it started to divide right there, pull this stuff back and make your way down that little ramp right there. All this does is kind of cover our tracks. That's all we're doing. And now we got this nice little CDC collar in front of the rest of it. That's what we're after. Okay, the next part is arguably the hardest, and that is tying in the deer hair bullet head. I'm going to make a shameless plug for these guys. This is a Renzetti bullet head tool. These things are absolutely amazing, and you're about to see one of these used, and you're going to want one. They're pretty fantastic. So here, we're going to take this elk hair. This is just regular, I've got a package over here somewhere. Select Cow Elk, this guy right here. Select Cow Elk, Nature Spirit. There's your little item code if you need it. That guy right there. All we're going to do is cut off a decent little bunch. We don't want an insufficient bullet head. Again, trimming this as close to the hide as we can. Notice we are still going to have same problems of lots of underfur and lots of shorts. Get those out. If you're cutting a bunch of hair and not brushing it out and not getting that underfur and those shorts out, your flies are not going to look uniform. They're not going to float right. The hair's not going to perform right. Nothing's going to go well. So we want to make sure that we really do spend some time prepping our materials here. So this, I'm going to take the hair, stick it in the stacker, again tips down. Now, unlike the other, let me see how this stacked up. That's looking pretty good. Hey, look in there. You see that one broken end. Now, we could be cool with that and just deal with it, or we could be exacting and make sure that it's not in there. But I want you to look at something real quick on the back of this elk here. Let me see if I can show this to you. See how in there not all the butt ends are the same length now that we've stacked it? Come in here and grab the butt ends, the longest ones, and watch what happens. Everything stays together. I'm going to try to get this in focus for everybody. But watch what happens if I grab this. All the short ones came out. By holding the longest fibers and the longest hairs, I can get all those short ones out and really make sure that what we're tying with is really what we want. Now, next question is it possible that that broken end was actually a broken hair in general? So we're going to find out. Pulling all the shorts out, coming in here. I'm going to stack it one more time. I'm a big believer. If you're trying to do one that, here we're doing it for camera, so if we're going to make it look good, let's stack it for real. Take that guy, pull it out of the stacker. Nope, he's still in there. That's all right. I'll pull him out. We'll get rid of him in a minute. Like right now. There he is right there. And with that one hair, there he is right there. He's gone. Okay. One hair gone, the rest are pretty darn even. What we're going to do is, this is the idea. We're going to tie the hair in like this, tie it in kind of in the middle, flare it, and then fold it backwards for the bullet head. The other kicker here is we don't want too much hook eye exposed, but at the same time, if you don't have enough, you can't actually use the fly. The general idea is go about half of an eye width. I find that to be pretty close to right. I'm going to cord my thread up again by spinning my bobbin because I want to make sure it's got some bite. I'm going to take the hair and I'm going to go about a hook shank long to tie-in point, something close to that. Now if you'll notice, see how it flares. Just like so. Notice what I have done with the material hand. It has not moved. Come in here, shove this forward and look. I think you can actually see right there, you can see that hook eye poking out. That's pretty good. That's what I want. I want this tied in nice and neat. And then what I'm going to do, just for kicks and giggles, this makes me happy to do this, I'm going to come in here and with my scissors, not letting go with my material hand, slip those scissors between that hair and that CDC and snip it. If you miss a few, it's okay. You can go hunt them down in just a second. Okay, that's good. That's taken care of. Come in here, shave all this off as close as you can get it without cutting your thread. That's the operative bit there. You cut your thread, it's kind of a bad deal here. You got a lot hanging on the line. So here, with this here, I can come in, advance my thread ever so slightly forward while keeping all these hairs kind of grouped together. So see how everything's still kind of more or less poking forward. Just like so. All that hair is kind of bunched up forward. I know it looks like a little bit of a hot mess, but don't worry about it. It's going to get real good here in just a second. Come in there, make a wrap around, and I want to show you something. See how the hair is all the way around the hook because of the way we tied it in. We kind of spread it when we did that. At this point, my hair is forward. I'm going to take any CDC that got caught in there and just pick it out with my scissor tips. And then I'm going to come in here and just give this one more little trim to make sure it's good. Now keep in mind, folks, we are doing this very, very methodically. These flies really don't take that long to tie. We're taking our time on each step and really trying to be really instructional here. This fly really doesn't take more than It's probably about a 7-minute tie once you get really good at them, somewhere in that neighborhood. Okay, once you've done so, this hair should be in pretty good shape. I can still see hook eye, all looks really good. You can then, it's okay if your hair spins here, I'm not worried about that because we're about to secure it all. I'm wrapping back through all that stubble back there. I don't want any of that in there. I want that all down. Anything that pokes up, keep in mind, there is a chance that if you have a butt end or something like that poking up and it's really sharp, that it will show through that bullet head. So if you can come in here and trim those little butt ends off, that really helps the appearance, the final appearance of the fly. Now, does it matter to the fish? Absolutely not. Does it matter to me? Depends on the day. All right, we're going to take this thread and advance it, or actually I guess retreat all the way back to the rear of the hook here. So you can see right now, let's just kind of go through steps again. We have our body, we have our wing, we have our CDC collar, and now we're putting in our deer hair head. The normal way to make a bullet head is to fold this back and bring all the materials across like this. And you can see there's a hook eye and a nice neat bullet head. What I'm going to do is start that step exactly how I did it, position the hair exactly how I want it, so just kind of look around the front. You need to get on the front side of the fly and look at it from this direction. Mash those hairs back, make sure that they're all pretty uniform around the hook. And then all we're going to do here is notice how our thread is that far back. See how it's behind all that? Take your bullet head tool with the pointy end, see how it's coned out ever so slightly on that latex there. Push it in. And make sure, and this is so cool, watch this. The bullet head is formed by the tool just like that. Push it back to where you want it, and then you can very slowly pull it backwards. And let me see if I can position this where y'all can see that. Let me get it in focus, y'all. There we go. See how the little cone section actually allows you to take your thread, all the hairs positioned correctly. I recommend that you hold the hair tight during this step and make a couple of wraps. Once you've done that and you've got a couple of securing wraps, hold the thread tension and pull this off. And you have this perfect little bullet head, and you didn't have to do that much manipulation to get it to work. So that's exactly what we're after there. This nice, neat little bullet head, got this flared wing, and that's all we're really after. Okay, step next. We did all that work. We're going to take our scissors and trim it flush on the bottom. About like so. Now, if you know much of fly history, this looks a lot, like a whole lot, like a little latort hopper. Latort hoppers were made famous in the Northeast, and still a deadly little fly for a creek application and things like that. But that little bullet head right there with that nice yellow body and spun wing, that just, oh man, it looks so good. I think they're amazing. You can make the wing shorter by decreasing your the amount of tips, or the length of the tips facing forward, and you can increase it by lengthening that. So if you want shorter wings, do it at like 3/4 of a hook shank to half a hook shank. If you want a full wing that's going almost to the back of the body, you can do a full. So either way works great. I think it looks good any which way you slice it. I don't love a whole lot of that poking out, so I'm actually going to trim this up into the collar just a little bit. I want the wing to mostly be positioned on the top, probably, I don't know, the top half for sure, but I like it actually a little bit this side of half, where if that's halfway point on the hook right here, I want the wing to be all on the top side. I think it makes it easier to see. I think it rests on the water better, and it shows the features of the fly a little better when you do that. So hopefully everybody can follow along on that. Any questions thus far? I do want to make sure that we pause and take questions where we need them. All right. So far I don't see anything. If y'all don't know how to ask questions, it's all in the chat. So if you're joining just now, just add it in the chat. Final 2 steps, and then we're pretty much done with the fly outside of a little bit of Sharpie on the legs. We're going to take 2 materials here. This is Uni-Flexx is what this is. You can use Flex Floss, Sexy Floss, Spanflex. There's all kinds of names for this stuff. I counted the names on this stuff one time, and I think I got up to like 7 or 8. But anyway, nonetheless, yeah, I like this. I've got Snicker bar sized fingers, so that would be a challenging fly. Just tie it in a 6, you'll be fine. Just go big, go big. Everything's easier with more room. But we're going to use this Uni-Flexx in a yellow and a camel because apparently, you know, tan was not sufficient, or, you know, caramel. But camel, that you know, everybody sees camels and they know they're this color. Sometimes fly tying is weird. It's just it's a strange thing. So here what we're going to do is get ourselves enough of this material. This is a stretchy leg material, and I don't know if you can see that, but it has a lot of stretch to it. And this stuff really holds up. It'll take abuse, and you don't really have any problems there. We're going to cut ourselves some of this off, and we're going to knot it. So what we're going to do is we are going to take this material, try to get two ends pretty close to the same length. So I'm going to gather this up. It's close-ish. You can see both ends there. All we're going to do is tie an overhand knot with both legs. That's all we're doing. It's just a simple knot, just like that. So it's on both legs there. Everybody should be able to see that. Overhand knot, pull it tight. What you are then left with is this little jointed leg. It's kind of a weird thing. I have talked to many people about this, about how to get these to look right, and I'll be honest, I'm just not good at it. There is a way, like for instance, I'll show you a finished one here. See how the legs kind of kick in the right direction? How they elbow out and stick straight out the back, or how they even kick the right direction. I don't know, it's just weird. The only other way I know how to make that happen, I've talked to Josh Smitherman about this a lot, and he goes, look, I knot it where it crosses behind and goes over the top. If you tie it the other direction, where it crosses over the top and bring the legs through behind, it supposedly kicks the other way. That's what I've heard. However, the only issue with that is that this material has a mind of its own. And so, Tom, where are the hooks? If you ever attend the fly tying nights in person around here, you know Jay Lindholm is the absolute obligatory. He's going to call for hooks. That's just all there is. He is the person that when the instructional portion is done, he is yelling, where's the hooks? So here, all I did is I cut the brown side, or the camel side, off of one, and we left both legs out the front. Now, if you turn this leg, you'll see that that leg is going to favor a certain direction. This will make a lot more sense when you do this yourself. But for instance, let me see if I tie this in, what's going to wind up happening. If I tie this little guy in, I do not want to pull on it in any direction, front or back. Up and down is fine if you need to adjust it, but if you pull front and back, these things, since they have inherent stretch already kind of built into the material, that kind of jointed leg in the rear gets real weird. I don't like it. So this one, I'm going to cut the brown one on this side, and let me see if I can get this thing to do what I want it to do. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and honestly, it doesn't affect the fishability of the fly or even how the fly sits. I don't know if y'all have looked at grasshoppers in nature. They're not all that orderly. There's a lot of legs and a lot of things going a lot of places. But turns out, looks like this is going to be absolutely perfect. We're just adding the next set of legs on the other side of the hook, and all we're doing here, lining up all of our legs. I want to pull that one up just a little bit. And that's looking pretty good. If you'll notice, they splayed out the right directions and the knots are pretty even. So you're just kind of looking at the knotted legs, you want it fairly even, and that's all we're after. I'm going to put a little bit of torque on that thread to make sure we're good. And then here, I'm going to tug that front leg, not stretching it, but I want to make sure it's in the right position because we're going to cover our tracks a little bit with some CDC. So those front brown legs are the ones we're going to keep. At this point, I want to caution everybody, just kind of how we addressed the mistake with the deer hair in the beginning. This is another really critical mistake point. So here, I want to make sure that my legs are together on each side. So notice how the legs are touching at the tie-in point, and the legs are touching at the tie-in point. If they are separated, this will not look right. Then I'm going to come in and I'm going to trim these yellow ones off, but I'm not going to stretch them. Do not stretch these to trim them. It'll throw the back legs off. Just trim them under regular tension, how they were tied in. Don't mess that up. The rear legs, we can then trim and make them however we want. And you'll see I had one that wanted to kick out a little bit, another one wanted to kick in. That's fine. They still are even. If you look down the profile of the fly, that's the main thing. Hopper legs are going everywhere when they're swimming, so I don't have a problem with that at all. The final step on the fly, after we've really kind of torqued down those legs, the final step is this. We're going to come in here, and I'm just going to take a single, just one really good long CDC feather, and this is in a brown, or this is really truly more of a tan or kind of a tawny natural. Natural done, or whatever you want to, light brown, all of that works. Punch it in the CDC clip, that Pettyjohn clip. So just like that, CDC's in the clip. Come in here, grab the chip clip portion, open the base, pull the feather out. You see how it stacks it nice and neat. Come in here with your long scissors, and we're going to just trim that away from CDC. As close as we can get it. Now we're left with usable CDC. That's what we're after. And we are going to insert that in a dubbing loop, and all that dubbing loop does is cover our tracks. So here, legs look pretty good. I'm going to flatten that thread out just a little bit. Come in here and split it. This should be significantly easier now that I have the needle the first time. And yes, it was. Split the thread. Fuzzy side in first. Notice that there's kind of a thin side and a fluffy side. Fluffy side in first. I don't like putting it right in the middle of the material. I kind of like doing 1/4, 3/4, where 1/4 is out one side and 3/4 hanging out the other. It just gives me more length on the material and makes the fly look more buggy. Spin that in the dubbing loop, and all we're going to do here is cover our tracks. And we're going to simultaneously position these legs while we're doing that. Okay, that's looking really good. Here what I want to do is I want to pull rearwards like this and come in there and make sure that we are not pinching too much of that CDC poking out that direction. That's what we're after. Torque it down, flare it out. Your legs should have stayed everywhere you needed them. That looks absolutely fantastic. And then the thing that bothers people is, where do you whip finish this fly? Well, since we're using a thinner thread and there's a lot of CDC going on, we're actually going to whip finish right at the collar. So watch your front legs because they're going to fight you a little bit. Come in there and put a small one in first. Check your leg positioning before you tighten. Give a little whip finish. It's looking nice and neat. And the final one, I'm going to go and trim these front legs just to make them a little less unruly for the finish. Come in there, place that back, and if you want, you can even pull everything back if you want to, and just do a small whip finish right there in the collar. Position the legs, torque that down, everything is good to go. A couple of whip finishes is more than sufficient. Come in there, cut your thread, fluff your CDC up, it's looking nice and neat. Come on the bottom, trim it flush. And if you'll notice, this is going to blend together on the bottom side, being very careful not to prick any of your deer hair work because that will make it mess up a little bit. But this fly right here is just insane. It just catches fish like mad. I'm going to trim those front legs nice and short because we don't need the added weight of them for one. Trim those back legs a little less, and we have got a finished mimic hopper. Nice segmented body on the bottom, yellow CDC underwing underneath the main deer hair wing. All we're going to do to finish this fly, and I'm not going to do it on camera just because it's a little hard unless it's on the table, is we're going to take a Sharpie and just put little black marks down those legs. Just bar those legs and you are good to go. This fly is so effective anywhere you fish it, and I'll be fishing this one here real soon. I'm going to be doing some guiding up in southern Colorado and do a little personal fishing in northern New Mexico. I will be taking these up there. It's just a great hopper. It lands really nice with just a perfect little splat. It's kind of the difference of using a hard-bodied popper versus a hair bug. You know, foam lands a certain way, deer hair and all this lands another, and it just has a real good natural sound. It does an amazing job of representing the genuine article. So with that, are there any questions? I want to make sure over here in the chat I can look over here and see if we've got any. So that is the entire mimic hopper. I'll throw one in there that has those barred legs real quick. That way everybody can see kind of what happens when you bar the legs. So that's what the legs look like when they're barred. You just take that and mark that up, and that's exactly what we got. Just another little mimic hopper. That's the finished product with those barred legs. Short fronts, long rear legs. That's exactly what we're after. So it's kind of fun going back and forth. I've been doing a lot of hair work. I've been fishing a lot of bass bugs lately, so y'all been catching me. I had to size down tonight. This is what I have been working on lately. It's these big old massive double weed guarded hair bugs. And they are an absolute blast. But they're a pain to tie. So, but it's a lot of fun. I love getting better at hair work. I'm not the world's greatest at that, but getting there. So it's always something to practice. There's always new skills in fly tying. So I'm not seeing any questions, but thank y'all for hanging on here. The main thing on this, how to fish it, put it up against the bank, short twitches or dead drifting in a trout arena. Anything works there. Not really the best fly in the world to support a dropper. It will do it. I wouldn't put like a super heavy dropper on it, but it will support a dropper if it's kind of a lightly weighted or unweighted dropper. It's fine for that. But if you're going to put some heavy tungsten on there, this really isn't the fly for that. It can hold up a dropper when need be, but it's not the best one for it. Let's see, will Rios hit those? They will on the Llano. If you're out there and you're in populations of Rios that actually feed on top, like for instance, Brushy Creek, not so much. San Gabriel, you'll catch a few. If you go out to the Western Llano, they will eat it, especially the Western Hill Country. Rios tend to look up more if you're out there. If you're closer to where we're at, the Rios get a little bit more bottom oriented, and they're not going to be as prone to eat a hopper. You're just not going to see that as much. So, but still a great fly for all your bass, your sunfish, your trout, anything. I mean, shoot, you can catch a catfish on it if you want to throw it up against the bank. So. But thank y'all for watching. We had a pretty good crew on tonight. Very much appreciate it. And we will be in touch. Thank y'all, and we will see you next time.